Happy Labor Day, and I hope you're watching this video at home, sitting on your sofa doing absolutely nothing but watching YouTube videos. And since today is Labor Day, this week's episode is going to focus on movies about people at work. Specifically, I'm going to explore some connections between movies that show people working in offices. And the drearier and the more soul-crushing the office, the better. And the very first movie I thought of when I pictured a dreary and soul-crushing office were the Initech offices from Office Space. So that's where we're going to start and end this week's episode. So I hope you don't have a bad case of the Mondays, because here's a tease of what's to come. When Office Space hit the theaters in 1999, it was not a hit at the box office. It wasn't until the movie hit the home video shelves and the cable channels that most people even heard about it. But once they did find it, Office Space swept into popular culture, becoming one of the more quotable movies of the late 90s. From PC Load Letter...
PC Load Letter? What does that mean?
To TPS reports...
We need to talk about your TPS reports.
Yeah.
To red swing line staplers... to pieces of flair.
Well, like Brian, for example, has 37 pieces of flair on today, okay?
This movie hit a chord with its audience, me included. I loved it so much, I even dressed up as the Post-it Man from the movie poster one Halloween. Now, one of my favorite recurring jokes in Office Space is a character who shares his name with singer Michael Bolton, a name he's not so crazy about.
You know, there's nothing wrong with that name.
There was nothing wrong with it until I was about 12 years old and that no-talent ass clown became famous and started winning Grammys.
Michael Bolton isn't the only character who hates sharing their name with a celebrity. In Horrible Bosses, Jamie Foxx plays a hitman who uses a nickname that I can't repeat here. We'll just call him MF Jones. Anyway, he uses that nickname to avoid telling everyone what his real name is.
Is that like on your birth certificate, too?
No, goofball. My real name is Dean.
Dean Jones. That's the same name of the actor in Herbie the Love Bug.
Yeah, he's not gonna know that.
I know who he is, bitch.
Sorry.
I can't walk around this neighborhood with that Disney-ass name.
Horrible Bosses follows three guys who are tormented by their bosses. A cocaine-addicted son who just inherited his father's company, a sadistic and self-serving financial manager, and a sexually aggressive dentist. The guys hatch a plan to get revenge on their bosses by each one killing one of the other's boss. Sort of Strangers on the Train style. Now, a similar storyline of three characters plotting to get revenge on their boss was the plot of another movie, 9 to 5. In it, Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, and Dolly Parton think they've accidentally poisoned their boss. But when he shows up at work the next morning, they have to develop a plan B. They head into the ladies' room where they talk through the options and finally decide to put everything behind them and act like nothing has happened. Unfortunately, the boss's spy, Roz, is hiding out in one of the stalls, taking notes on what they say, and she gives that information to the boss. When he begins to blackmail the ladies, they kidnap him and take over the entire office. Like 9 to 5, Working Girl also has a scene where someone is listening in on a conversation from a bathroom stall. This time it's Harrison Ford and Melanie Griffith who are being eavesdropped on. They've crashed the wedding reception for a businessman they want to pitch a deal to. Unfortunately, their plan was overheard by a member of the wedding party who points them out to the bride and gets them chased out of the event. One of the more memorable scenes from Working Girl happens at the very end of the movie when Melanie Griffith starts her new job. At first she's disappointed, thinking she's back to being a secretary, but she soon discovers that her desk is actually in the office. Her new assistant suggests that they cover her expectations, and Melanie responds with this.
I expect you to call me Tess. I don't expect you to fetch me coffee unless you're getting some for yourself. And, the rest we'll just make up as we go along. Okay?
That speech is repeated almost word for word in 50 Shades Darker when Dakota Johnson is given a promotion.
I know. I mean, am I expected to call you Miss Steele?
I expect you to call me Anna. And I don't expect you to fetch me coffee unless you're getting some for yourself. And the rest of it we'll just make up as we go. Okay?
Okay.
It's fitting that Dakota Johnson gave that speech since she is the daughter of Melanie Griffith. Over the years, there have been lots of famous parents whose children have also had success in Hollywood. Kirk Douglas and Michael Douglas, Goldie Hawn and Kate Hudson, Tony Curtis, Janet Leigh and Jamie Lee Curtis, Debbie Reynolds and Carrie Fisher, Henry Fonda and Jane and Peter Fonda, the Derns, the Houstons, the Bridges, the Coppolas, the Sutherlands, and so many more. Most of the family ties in Hollywood represent success in front of the camera, but there are plenty of examples of families who have made an impact behind the camera as well. One that jumps to mind is Ivan Reitman, the director of classic comedies like Ghostbusters, Stripes, Twins, and Kindergarten Cop. Ivan's son Jason is a director as well, and Jason's brought us Juno, Thank You for Smoking, and the next movie in our chain, Up in the Air. Up in the Air has some amazing moments, but for me, it's the scenes at the beginning and the end where we see people reacting to being laid off. To add authenticity to these scenes, Jason Reitman reached out to local residents in Detroit and St. Louis and cast real people, not actors, who had recently lost their jobs and had them reenact their responses to being fired.
And they send some yo-yo like you in here to try to tell me that I'm out of a job? They should be telling you you're out of a job.
Another office-related film that used real people instead of actors was the musical How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. After making a big impression on the boss, Robert Morse's character heads into work the next morning with a special spring in his step. To get the shot they wanted, they decided to film his walk into work using hidden cameras and an earpiece to cue Morse on the timings. There were no extras or other actors in the scene. All the reactions we see were from real New Yorkers watching a man dance down the street. How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying ran on Broadway for more than 1,400 performances and won the Tony for the Best Musical of 1962. Another office-related production that made its way from Broadway to the big screen is David Mamet's Glengarry Glen Ross. The film is known for its standout ensemble cast that includes Al Pacino, Ed Harris, Alan Arkin, Kevin Spacey, and Alec Baldwin, who gives perhaps the darkest and most memorable motivational speech ever.
Because we're adding a little something to this month's sales contest. As you all know, first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado. Anybody want to see second prize? Second prize is a set of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired.
And when his character tells one of the salesmen to put the coffee down,
put that coffee down.
He's talking to Jack Lemmon. Jack Lemmon connects us to our next film, Billy Wilder's classic office drama, The Apartment. With a story inspired by a minor character in Noel Coward's Brief Encounter, The Apartment follows Lemon's character of Bud Baxter as he tries to work his way up in a large New York insurance company. And if that endless sea of desks looks familiar, it's likely because a similar office was created for another insurance company, Insuracare, where Bob Parr, also known as Mr. Incredible, works. After 15 years of living only as Bob Parr, Bob and the rest of the Incredibles begin to return to their superhero crime-fighting life. And by the end of the movie, the whole family is ready to spring into action. This final shot of Mr. Incredible ripping open his shirt to reveal his Mr. Incredible costume is, of course, a reference to the Superman movies. And while Superman has had to deal with evil geniuses like Lex Luthor and criminals from Krypton like General Zod, in the third film in the series, he had to battle a scheming computer programmer played by Richard Pryor. Pryor's character initially gets caught doing what's called a salami slicing scam. In a salami slicing scam, the criminal commits a series of smaller crimes, any one of which is not likely to be noticed, but in total can add up to big money. In his case, he directs all the half cents that might be left over in employees' paychecks to come to his account. The result is a big paycheck for him landing on his desk every week. The same scam, taking the remainders of payments that are less than a penny each, as shown in Superman 3, inspired a similar crime in a later movie when Peter, Samir, and Michael Bolton commit a similar crime against Initech in Office Space.
This sounds familiar.
Yeah, they did in Superman 3.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's review the connections we've covered today. We started with Office Space, which features a character who shares his name with a famous celebrity, just like Jamie Foxx does in Horrible Bosses, which features employees partnering up to get revenge on their bosses, just like in 9 to 5, which has a scene with someone listening in on a conversation from a bathroom stall, which also happens in Working Girl, which features a closing speech by Melanie Griffith that her daughter Dakota Johnson repeats almost word for word in 50 Shades Darker. Jason Reitman, another child of a famous Hollywood filmmaker, directed Up in the Air, which features scenes with non-actors, just like a scene in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, which originally appeared on Broadway, just like Glengarry Glen Ross, and featured a great performance by Jack Lemmon, who appeared in one of the great Office movies, The Apartment, which featured shots of an endless sea of desks, just like the one shown in The Incredibles, which featured a superhero who rips open his shirt to reveal his supersuit, just like Superman, who faced a villain in Superman 3 who was a low-level computer programmer who found a way to embezzle fractions of a single penny thousands or even millions of times, a crime that inspired the three guys in Office Space to launch their own embezzlement scheme. And we've come full circle. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and as always, if you have a favorite star, a specific film, or even a type of movie you think will make a good episode, please be sure to let me know in the comments below. And until next time, thanks again for watching A Million Movies.